I've been thinking a lot lately about the ways that church kind of lets people down, leaves people behind. And a lot of times it's the people who need the church the most or need the teachings of Christ the most. You know, I look back to, there was a young couple who, they must have been still, like 16, 17 at most, probably maybe even younger than that. And they accidentally got pregnant and had a baby at a very young age. And they really got active in the church. They wanted to have the faith that they grew up with. The church just rejected them outright. I mean, just for their sins, I guess, of being, such a young couple, having a child out of wedlock, and it was just a sad thing to see. They just rejected really most of the help that they needed, and I really do think, I was still just a kid at the time. I was, a little bit older teen, maybe a couple years older. And I just remember how sad that was. And that those are the type of people that the church should be taking in, should be seeking out, really. And for me, I always had the more metaphysical type connection with God. I did connect with God, with Jesus, when I was 13, and that was in a Bible camp. They read the story of Jesus getting tortured and nailed to the cross, and all that he went through, and I could feel Jesus there with me. That was really my first kind of major spiritual awakening, I guess. And after that, no church, no nothing. And that wasn't even the church. That was just some older teens at the time. When I was 13, they just completely, there was never a time that I remembered at all where it appealed to my spirituality, to my sense of spirituality. Now, I understand that I have always been a more metaphysical, I guess, type of spiritual person. Traditional spirituality is something I did learn from, but it never called to me. It never connected me to God. And I've said it in a lot of my other videos. The churches have failed because they do not connect people to God, except for the ones who fit in this certain box. And it is something that I think is a real shame. I really do think there is a place for the more metaphysical type people. The people who can feel things beyond this world. They're connecting to God just in a different way. And really, Jesus is still the best option for all those people. But they're so shunned by the Christian community for the most part. I'm not saying this is obviously not the entirety of the Christian community, but they are shunned because they don't practice exactly the way that their theology or their sect of the church or their denomination of the church thinks that they should. And I do think that churches should start to reevaluate that, and there needs to be more for people who were like me. I want to tell you a little bit about me, and this was, I had that feeling when I was 13 when I could feel Jesus. And I mean, it was so powerful and so amazing. And I could feel the presence of God and of Jesus throughout even my teen years. So by the time my teen years were over, since church hadn't appealed to me, I started looking at other places. And that's when I found psychedelics. And I started dabbling into psychedelics, probably a little too much at the time when I was 19. And guess what? I started seeing things that changed my life. And that was what I was searching for. And I was sure at the time that the church just didn't get me. So I would have to just blaze my own trail and go into the world of the unknown world in my own way. Well, it didn't take long with psychedelics, pushing it, trying to find this meaning, trying to find God, trying to find that connection that I had. I found so much more, and I learned so much about the kind of spiritual realm, but I never got that pure, just compassionate inner peace that I did when I did feel Jesus. And so after a couple years, I just about had a nervous breakdown from doing the psychedelics, and always just searching for God, and just so lost that I never knew what else to do. I mean, I never really did. And the church just wasn't for me. It couldn't give me what I needed spiritually. And that's because the messenger, it wasn't the message, it was the messengers. They are all sinners themselves, but so many of them acted as if they were above all of us. That's so many Christians just act, and these are the people I think that aren't really, most of them, I would say, don't really know what it is to connect with God. And they just know that their church is their little clique or their little group that accepts them, and that is their way to more status in life and more, whatever they're looking for, more control over people. So it was so sad to see the way that it unfolded, and seeing so many people. My father was so devout and so active in the church, and so was my mother. And when my father, he was really active in the Presbyterian church, and he'd moved to Pennsylvania, and he went and built houses for the Katrina victims, and did all these things, just giving his time completely to others, serving others completely, just like Christ would want him to. And when he got sick, and when he had his first heart attack, and really was depressed because of that, probably the low blood flow to his brain was making his depression even worse, and feeling probably scared and alone in life and purposeless for the first time, because he's a man's man. He knows how to take care of himself and how to take care of others. But that time, the church just didn't even reach out. I mean, what kind of example are you setting for anyone? Who needs that kind of church in their lives? Who needs that kind of spiritual leadership? I really do think that for me, and I've always said I'm a Christian first and foremost. I am more of a metaphysical type. I do have that metaphysical type connection to God and to Jesus. But I think that my job is to find the lost people in the world who need my help, the ones that God sends me to, because I don't know anything without God. I know nothing, only what He allows me to know. and everything I need to know is already in my mind. It just needs to be unlocked by him. As I go, he unlocks more and more wisdom. But my job is to go out and to find all of those lost souls and to help them find a path and to show them that God, and especially the teachings of Christ and Christianity, are not what has probably pushed them away in the past. So many people have been pushed away by strict parents and strict churches, and there's denominations that won't allow them to celebrate even birthdays or just have any fun at all. And I mean, who wants that? Jesus does not want that. Jesus wants you to embrace the joy and peace in life. I mean, he was cranking out that wine for that wedding. They ran out and they just kept cranking it out. They're like, Jesus, hey, we need you. He's not opposed to having a good time. And those who think that he is, they are thinking that because they've been taught that by a church that just shouldn't even be teaching others, because they're doing no good for Christianity. They're doing no good for really the world, in my opinion. You have to understand, if you have been in that situation and you've been shunned or pushed away by really any religion, don't let that hamper your spiritual goals. Build a personal relationship with God. Go out and if you need to do what I do, go in the woods. I go in the woods and I just ask God to guide me, and he shows me the way in different ways all the time. And that's definitely not the only way. That's my way. And I try to explain that to people. Your way might be something completely different. It may be going into a church, and that is absolutely probably the most popular way. And there is nothing wrong with going into church, because most churches, you might have to go to a couple different ones to find the best one. But most of them will be accepting, will be compassionate to you, just like Christ was. But there's always going to probably at least be a few people in the churches. Just try to make sure it's not the pastor or the leaders who are like what I was saying, just push people away or say my way or the highway. They're not the one. We're worshiping God. We're worshiping Jesus. We're not worshiping you. You are just the messenger. You are meaningless in this, except for just getting that message out. And if you give them a message that is anti what Jesus would want, what Jesus taught, then you're really just doing a disservice to everyone. If you don't feel the true connection to God, you shouldn't be leading a church at all. I mean, it really is sad that some of these people are out there. And I mean, people just get so ingrained in these limitations on spirituality because their church or their spiritual leader or whoever told them that's the way it had to be. There is so many ways to connect with God and so many ways to connect with Christ, and you have to find that way yourself. And yet, it's got to be a little bit of a personal relationship before a church can really do much for you. But I could be wrong about that. A church has woken many a people. I know many people who haven't had that real personal relationship until they found Jesus through the church. But for me, it was the exact opposite. The church was just pushing me away, and I did want that wisdom so badly. I just couldn't connect to it because the messengers were all, my parents were the only good messengers about it, but I still think that it's hard to teach a kid like theology and spirituality. I mean, because they don't know suffering. They don't know anything. try to teach my girls. And I'm just trying to teach them the basic stories and things like the basic tenets of Christianity. And it's hard because they're so into, they want to go watch their pad or play their video games or play with their dolls or whatever. They're not worried about that. And I wasn't worried about that at that age either. I mean, if you can get to them the right way, if any of you have tips and you're still watching this video, please let me know, because I really want to know more about how to spread the word to children instead of just making them sit through a boring Sunday school class, or even worse, a boring sermon, which is all geared towards adults and not children. If you have any tips on that, I would love to hear it, because I'm trying to get my girls involved. We started watching The Chosen with my oldest daughter, and she just didn't understand what was going on. And I was trying to explain it to her, and it was just like, I could tell, because I've had that feeling many a times. It was going in one ear and out the other. So that's a challenge I've been trying to to overcome. But if you do have any of those suggestions, please let me know. Other than that, don't let anything push you away from God. You worship God and you connect with God in the way that God shows you. God will show you. He will show you different philosophies. He'll show you different religions. He'll show you different things to get there. And though I'm a Christian, I take definitely philosophies. I'll pick and choose all kinds of things that work for me, and just having a more positive life and connecting with God. And in religions, I'll do the same. And that doesn't mean that I'm not a Christian anymore, or that I can't be a real Christian because I'm taking some cues from Buddhism or whatever about the meditation and transcendental meditation. And I don't care if you tell me that it's right or not. God is showing me this. It's not me. It's out there like, I'm gonna just shun Christianity. No, I wholeheartedly believe in Christianity, and I believe the message of Jesus is the most powerful, both philosophy and spirituality there is. But there's also powerful things out there in other places that can help you, and it's a shame to let those go to waste. Just don't let those go to waste, please. Okay, well, happy Easter, and I will talk to you all soon.